Hello, everybody, and welcome to our UFC 261 post show. I'm John Pollock, along with the Lord of the Cord, my good personal friend, Phil Chertok. Phil, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing tremendous, John. We're here much earlier than we anticipated after what was one of the wildest cards in UFC memory. And that's a statement.
I would say one of the cards that I think will stand out in UFC history. I don't think that's overstating things about tonight, just given just the nature of how this card was promoted, with fans being back, three championship fights, the nature in which they finished, some incredible moments, some heartbreaking ones as well. I totally believe this will be a card that will be looked back upon just for its, I don't even want to say significance, but one that I think will be remembered for an extremely long amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, last year at this time, there was the first card of the pandemic in front. Well, I guess it was the second one after they took a break from the Brazil event, and that was a wild event. But this is it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. There were so many things that happened throughout the evening, and then of course the whole story of the event itself and the crowd, which played such a factor in this event. It was something to behold.
What did you think about the overall presentation tonight with fans being back and how much that just changed what you've been used to for the past year of MMA?
It was, I mean, the visual of it didn't really strike me. Some people were commenting that they felt it was uncomfortable seeing people so close together in the stands without masks, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But it was more just the energy of the crowd, how hot they were, and how involved they were in so many of the fights that was kind of the mind-blowing part of it.
Yeah, when it hit its crescendo, it was that roar that I can't imagine what it was like being in the arena for some of those moments throughout the night. I mean, had Jorge Masvidal won this fight, I don't know what the decibel level would have been like in the ViStar Veterans Memorial Arena, but it would have been just unbelievable because when he got to his feet after that initial takedown, I mean, you would have thought this guy had just scored a knockout with the way this crowd reacted.
Yeah, I mean, they were. I mean, this was the main event. He was their guy, and it had built up throughout the night as well, and they were so hot. It was pretty spectacular. The energy that they put out.
So let me put you into the state of Florida, Phil. What would have been your deciding factors for a card this big, and just put yourself into the shoes of fans that went to this show? Like, what would have been where you would be weighing whether you were going to buy a ticket or just watch this on pay-per-view?
That's a really tough question, John. I hadn't really thought about it like that.
That's why I'm putting you on the spot, Phil.
Yeah, but it just from their perspective, like people paying attention to the Discord and our chat. Things aren't going so great in Ontario lately, and the U.S. has a very accelerated vaccine program, and I can't really comment on what another jurisdiction really just chooses to do in terms of the events. For me, I don't feel I would be comfortable going to that event, even if I were vaccinated right now. Mask, no mask, social distancing, no social distancing. It's just right now, my comfort level is at home watching these events. But for the fans in attendance who make that choice and feel safe, no sweat on them. And, I am glad that at least the choice is out there for people. We're in a tough spot right now. We're in lockdown. And so, it's a difficult sort of thing to wrap my head around entirely.
Yeah, they did have there you did need to fill out a go through the standard questionnaire survey that I think is going to be bare minimum if for people going to events in the future. And then they were distributing masks for free, but as Dana White had stated, it was up to you if you want to watch or wear a mask or not. But that was a big thing focused upon this show and coming out of it as well. Hopefully this was done as safely as possible, but it's, it does seem like this is not going to be a case of the UFC taking any steps back. It seems like they are pushing ahead full force. And I think that this will be the norm for pay-per-views. And I think it's only a matter of time, Phil, before all of their events are in front of fans. Like that seems to be the direction that live events and sports especially are going in.
Yeah, I mean, the trends are good. I mean, even in our dire situation here, the government put out some information that if we get people vaccinated to a certain point, that by this summer, certain health restrictions could be lifted. So, and now for us, sports isn't one of those, but again, it's different in America, and they seem to be okay with the stress that it puts on their system, and they're vaccinating aggressively. And yeah, I see as long as there's going to be American jurisdictions where they're going to let the UFC put on full events, then the UFC is going to be putting on packed cards on pay-per-view.
So tonight's card, when I was looking at it this afternoon, I was looking forward to this card quite a lot. Like I thought there was a lot beyond just the championship fights. There were a lot of intriguing matchups on tonight's card. I thought there was absolutely no prayer that I would be talking with you, Phil, until probably closer to 1:45 in the morning. And here we are at 12:30 going live. I am stunned.
Well, I mean, thankfully we started early because we have so much to talk about. The show could run forever. That's a sales pitch for those listening.
Yes. Well, we're going to get into all of the championship fights, and I think we start right from the top, and that was Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal, the rematch from last July, which for those that forget, it was Jorge Masvidal stepping in on 6 days notice. And that was kind of the story coming out of this was, well, what could Masvidal do with a full fight camp? I think many would say probably not anything different from the outcome of the first fight, but this was a very different fight, Phil, because in this one, Kamaru Usman put such a stamp on this two-fight rivalry. The first round, we saw Masvidal coming out with low kicks, but it was Usman landing with a right hand. Masvidal did go for the flying knee, but that kind of set up Usman for the takedown. And as I mentioned earlier, when Masvidal finally got up off the ground, this place exploded. And Usman continues with his jab. He was pretty effective with that. And the second round begins, and Usman is continuing with his strikes, and Masvidal is just giving him this smile, like he's not selling any of this. And with that, Usman proceeds to throw one of the most violent right hands you have ever seen that just sent Jorge Masvidal onto another planet. He goes down, and somehow we get 5 more hammer fists from Kamaru Usman. This one was completely done before Masvidal even hit the ground. 1 minute, 2 seconds of round number 2. Kamaru Usman with, I think, not in the same level of, quick fashion, but this was what Jorge Masvidal's highlight reel of Ben Askren was. This was for Kamaru Usman's career. This will be the highlight reel moment that is replayed in every single commercial for every Kamaru Usman fight from now until the end of time.
Absolutely. First of all, like you described, it was just an incredible highlight visually. The opponent, someone who, even though, he hasn't had the best record, has always been durable, never been finished like this before. And yeah, just the nature of the event, how popular Masvidal is, how big this event was, it will definitely be, as you said, a highlight that we will see over and over again throughout what hopefully is a pretty long career, because he has the potential to set some records here that could be untouchable.
Yeah, I mean, Usman was booed heavily coming out. I mean, this was completely Jorge Masvidal audience in Florida. After the fight, though, it was, Kamaru Usman. He had his father, who was his father. There's this great ESPN feature talking about Kamaru Usman this week and profiling him. And his father was attending. This was his first fight that he had ever attended, seeing his son. He had been in prison for a number of years. And so he's in the cage along with Usman's mother. He's wearing the championship. And then Usman, very respectful of Masvidal, stating that, you pushed me to get better. And they really just buried whatever animosity there was. That I'm sure a lot of it was the fact, listen, that fight drew tremendously well back in July. And I think that had a big factor to play of building up this rematch. And I think both understood headlining this show. But Masvidal was interviewed and gave no excuses, said he was the better man tonight. I got beat and I'll be fine.
And I think he will be. I mean, he's set up his bare knuckle boxing promotion for down the line after his career's over. And there's still lots of great fights for him out there, just not with Kamaru Usman. Yeah.
And that brings up, I mean, the question we always go to after something like this. Your opponents that you have out there, to me, there's the logical contenders, which would be, Leon Edwards is going to be fighting in 3 weeks against Nate Diaz. You have Stephen Thompson, who to me is still in the mix. And then you have just your wild card options. Like if Nate Diaz were ever to win next month, I think this guy would jump all of the lines, because with Kamaru Usman, you're just putting together whatever opponent you can opposite him, because this is an extremely dominant champion. We can now start to have the discussion about Kamaru Usman and where his welterweight reign is going to rank to George St. Pierre's. I mean, he is putting a hell of an argument attached to this reign that has been, I mean, the way he finished Gilbert Burns and now this one, it's, he's building quite an enormous title reign.
Absolutely. And he has his own set of accomplishments that George St. Pierre does not have. He's undefeated in the UFC. That's something that George St. Pierre was not able to accomplish. So I think as he continues, I think he will get closer and closer to that status, and I'll be watching. I mean, tremendous fighter, tremendous performance. And yeah, I mean, now the talk is he number one pound for pound? It's hard to make an argument against that.
Yeah, this was a fight that, I mean, much like the Colby Covington fight, this was not one that was won on his wrestling. And that's, of course, the name that I think everyone is going to be going towards is the rematch with Colby Covington. So given those outcomes, like let's say that, is Colby Covington just the automatic choice that you go to, given the quality of fight that they had in the rematch? How much does that fight interest you for the next one for Usman?
I mean, personally, it doesn't interest me that much compared to the Leon Edwards fight, because, it's been so long and it's like you sort of feel bad for Edwards and what's gone down. I do agree with you that I think Nate Diaz, if he wins that fight, he will leapfrog. I mean, if he wants the title fight, it's like whatever he wants kind of thing.
Yeah, he would trump everyone, I think, with a win. It's like I think, yeah, like the rules are just totally different for Nate Diaz. And I don't think, like, for Kamaru, that's a horrible fight for Nate Diaz. Just a horrible fight for him. And for Kamaru Usman, it's extremely, like, of all the options, Nate Diaz would be the one you would be just throwing your arm in the air to volunteer to take.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, get paid, right? Like, that's what it's about while you're on top.
Just before we move on, anything that surprised you out of Masvidal in this fight?
I thought he came in well prepared generally. I mean, just, he was active off the bottom. I thought he did a great job of controlling the bottom position and then working his way to get back to his feet and separating to end the round. But of course, he was susceptible to that shot throughout the fight because the wrestling of Kamaru is so good, and you have to be prepared for that takedown. And so that was really the surprising thing. It was Kamaru. I thought Masvidal looked okay going into the second round.
Women's strawweight championship fight. It was Zhang Weili defending the title against former champion Rose Namajunas, and Zhang Weili came out and received a lot of boos. And this, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way that she got such a reaction.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd, this started earlier in the night. I think when the first American fighter versus Canadian, they were deep in the USA chants, and then Rose had brought up some issues about her family's history with communism leading up to this fight. So I think that played a role in that.
Which she briefly addressed afterwards. I think
right.
She did bring it up after the fact to try and, I think, quell things. But the fight itself, this was a fight that I thought was the most intriguing of the three championship fights, but it's an early end as Namajunas landed this switch kick and it landed flush on the head of Weili, who goes down, ate several hammer fists, and it's a knockout finish for Rose Namajunas at 1:18 of the opening round. Weili was protesting the stoppage, but I had no, and I don't think anybody was arguing that this was the right call for referee Keith Peterson to make. And Rose Namajunas is the new champion, and this was quite the scene afterwards between Namajunas, who was in tears, Joe Rogan was in tears, Pat Barry was just Pat Barry for an extended period of time. I mean, this was quite the celebration that Rogan called a magic moment in MMA.
A magic mushroom moment for him potentially. But I mean, it was a great moment. I don't mean to shit on it. And it's charming, him crying in there. It is beautiful, her aspirations to be the best, to come back after such a brutal defeat and become champion again. It's understandable why he might react that way.
Yeah, I mean, I hate when they went and interviewed Zhang Weili, who's just like eating this head kick. But anyway, they did interview her, and she just said through her interpreter that she could be back quickly, and she maintained she thought it was an early stoppage and said she was still conscious. So this is one where I don't think Zhang Weili will be too far away. Very young in her career. She will absolutely fight for this championship again, barring, her career going down a path of consecutive losses. But she is such an enormous star, especially in China. They were throwing out the social media numbers for her, and it was astounding, the following that she has been helping cultivate along with the UFC, that I would think she is one of those champions that, if not an automatic fight, is one fight away, and she'll be fighting for this championship again.
I definitely agree. It was a bit rough. They tried to build this event around her a little bit, right? They had, I think, 3 or 4 other fighters from the region on this card. It wasn't a good night for them either, for the most part, it seemed. But yeah, I think she'll bounce back in a high-profile fight, and it won't take long to put her back in a title fight if she can get a win or two together.
Yeah, it's only the second loss of her career. She lost in her very first fight, which was in 2013. Has had 23 fights in that span, which is quite a significant amount. But I think, do you look at this, because she had not fought since that war with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and that was, I think everyone was curious to see like what impact that a fight of that magnitude has on you. I don't know if we necessarily got the answer here in 1:18, but one that, those are the kinds of fights that you look at, and they can sometimes be those fights where a fighter is not the same afterwards, win or lose.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I agree that we didn't get a chance to see that that question answered here. So hopefully she can make a speedy recovery, and we will get a chance to see her back in there soon.
And then at strawweight, we've got well, it's kind of just open in terms of where they go next. I guess Joanna's in the mix. You've got Mackenzie Dern, who is rising up. Dana White very high on Mackenzie Dern, if you heard some of his interviews earlier this week. But that's the women's strawweight division. But this was, I can't say I was surprised. I was actually favoring Rose Namajunas to win this fight, but in the fashion in which she did, it was a stunning knockout. And I put you on the spot, Phil. We haven't got the bonuses yet. What? Well, they're not going to name knockout of the night. We'll get performance. But what was the knockout of the night?
I would give it to Kamaru Usman, because
it's a really tough choice between the two. I lean Usman too. I think that was like an all-time knockout. Just you have to look at it not just in terms of like both hold extreme significance with them. They're championship fights, but for me, I mean, it was the visual of the right hand. It was the quality of opponent, as you listed with Jorge Masvidal. I mean, significant to knock out someone that has had that amount of fights. I lean towards Usman as well, but it's one where, I mean, geez, I thought Corey Sandhagen was a lock for knockout of the year this year with Frankie Edgar, and we got some competition after tonight.
Yeah, round of the year as well. A lot of great stuff on this event.
Well, then we go to who I know is your pound for pound fighter, Valentina Shevchenko.
Fighter, dancer, multilinguist. I mean, marksman,
promo. She might have had the best speech on this whole show, with all due respect to anyone else. This was unbelievable. Valentina Shevchenko and Jéssica Andrade. So Jéssica Andrade, she moved to flyweight in her last fight, beating Katlyn Chookagian last October, and that got her the title fight with Shevchenko. And this was as dominant a fight as Valentina Shevchenko has had, and that covers significant ground. She was able to get the body lock on Andrade and pretty much just throw her down to the canvas whenever she felt like it. She is just taking down Andrade at will. She got 5 takedowns in the first round. She's drilling her with knees. I went 10-8 in the first round. I know it's kind of borderline, but it was a dominant round, and she had the components of what a 10-8 round is, like of damage, domination, and duration. I mean, she checked the boxes for me in this one. And then in the second, it didn't matter what your scorecards were. She just violently takes her down, gets to a crucifix position, and then starts landing punches, elbows. She's cut Andrade open on the forehead, and the fight gets stopped at 3 minutes and 19 seconds of round number 2, making her 5th defense of the championship. And then she tells Joe Rogan, "My plan was come into the octagon and destroy my opponent. Sorry, Jéssica, but that was my plan. And for all of you looking for weaknesses in me, don't waste your time. There are none." This was the most amazing speech afterwards. A perfect performance from walkout, performance, finish, dance, promo, out. This was flawless, Phil.
I couldn't agree more. I said it myself in the Discord. This is a star, just how she speaks in the multiple languages, how she has all these incredible skills, and, is such an interesting personality outside of the cage. She just seems like such a lovely human being. But when she gets in there, she is an assassin, like almost a literal assassin. It's incredible. I mean, I'm smitten. Valentina, if you're listening, DM me in the Discord. I can learn to dance a little bit. I got some hip action too. I can learn to shoot. Give me a call anytime. Okay.
An utterly dominant performance by Jéssica Andrade. We look ahead, and Lauren Murphy is going to be fighting Joanne Calderwood in June. I guess the winner of that will get the next title fight, and that will produce an opponent for Valentina Shevchenko.
I'm okay with that right now. I'm okay with her, the UFC kind of putting her up, putting her in there with like a murder, like she's the murderer's row, just like lining them up for her for a while. But eventually, yeah, they're going to need to figure out something to give her a real challenge. Maybe that's another fight.
I think Brett Okamoto suggested. I think it was Brett Okamoto that suggested cancel Lauren Murphy and Joanne Calderwood. Let them both fight Valentina Shevchenko. And I don't think Lauren Murphy was amused when she saw that. Listen, this is like, no Lauren Murphy or Joanne Calderwood, but it is we say this after every Valentina Shevchenko fight. And there will come a day when she is going to be, no one stays at this level forever, but there's no slowing down evident. And until I see it with my eyes, I'm not picking anyone to beat Valentina Shevchenko.
John, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time looking for a weakness, because there aren't.
I was waiting for Amanda Nunes to pop up and just be like, I still exist in this world, Valentina. So if I ever feel like coming down to 125 to say hello, 3-division champion Amanda Nunes, but I don't think that one's going to be happening.
It could happen again at 135. It's not out of the question, right? Because they did it before.
I think that's honestly like that fight at some point they're going to revisit. I look at Valentina Shevchenko and she is hands down the best 125er in the world. And I don't think like a rematch with Amanda Nunes, like her giving up that size, like I don't think the third fight is going to be much different than the second one, which followed the first one. It's a fight that I think you could promote it, and it's the biggest fight you can do for these two because it's not like either have a ton of contenders. But I don't know. It's like it's not super appealing to me either because I don't think it's the weight class that benefits Shevchenko, and it's an opponent that I think we've gotten the answer to that question.
Yeah, it's. Enough time has passed. Nunes is better. I largely agree. It's not the most intriguing fight out there, but it's kind of the only one I can conceive of that's a challenge for either lady, really.
Yeah, it is. And if you made that fight tomorrow, people would be stoked to see it again because like you watch a performance like this from Valentina Shevchenko, you can sell a third fight. That's not the question. It's it's like I'm sure they're going to revisit it at some point. All right, let's get into the awful injury to Chris Weidman, which thankfully we will not have any footage of this. So it's Uriah Hall and Chris Weidman. It's a rematch from September of 2010 when they were rising middleweights at the age of 27 each, fighting for Ring of Combat. On that night, it was Chris Weidman winning the middleweight championship, handing Uriah Hall his first loss. Well, here we are 10 plus years later. This fight, it's over practically as soon as it begins. Weidman throws a leg kick and his leg just snaps and he goes down. Everyone is in shock at, first of all, how graphic this injury is. It's horrifying. I would advise don't go watch this. This is a visual you don't need in the back of your mind that will forever haunt you. But in the UFC's history, there have been 3 leg injuries of this nature with Chris Weidman involved in 2 of them. You had Corey Hill, which to this day frightens me when I think about it. Then, of course, it was UFC 168 with Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman. And now this, shocking just that those odds. But my God, they replayed this. And then what was just, I could not fathom this, Phil, was Chris Weidman is taken out on a stretcher. He is in unimaginable pain. And Dana White sends out a tweet with the replay, the first fighter in UFC history to win without a single strike thrown. That's the line.
Yeah.
How does that tweet? I don't, whether it was Dana that tweeted that out or someone, how that gets tweeted out is just beyond just shocking to me. The worst taste possible. And I can't imagine Chris Weidman in a hospital and then seeing that was the tweet immediately that we are sending out.
Absolutely, and also an insult to Uriah Hall as well.
And he was. You could see he was just devastated in the ring by this. I thought kind of unfair to put him on the spot where they interviewed him, but he gave such a classy speech, wishing Weidman well, talking about their history together, going back to that first fight and what he learned from that loss, and even tying it in that Weidman was, the first person in the UFC to beat Anderson Silva. Uriah Hall was the last one. And, you could see he was, I thought it was an incredibly classy speech at a, very, very tough moment as well, where you're watching this. It was just a horrifying, like one of the most horrific injuries you've ever seen in the sport, I would say. Like, it was awful to see.
It was awful. It was all as gruesome as you described and worse. So I would not recommend people go check that out. I thought Uriah Hall, as you said, handled it tremendously, not just in the post-fight speech, but even just his demeanor throughout, the process of getting Weidman together. Obviously he was shook up by it, devastated potentially, but he really handled it like a professional. And Cormier, made a point to talk about his maturation through his career. And I think for him to come up and recall that history on the spot in such a thoughtful and honest way does demonstrate where he's at in his career. And just unfortunate. I mean, that's so putting it mildly. Like, I hate to use that word. It's like, it's devastating, horrible for his family, horrible for Uriah Hall as well. It really sucks.
Yeah, I would think it's, you look at Chris Weidman, he is 36 years old. Megan O'Leary noted at the end of the broadcast that he's going for surgery on Sunday, and that he was at least stable. But, when Anderson suffered that injury, I mean, he was out for over a year. You definitely have to look at Chris Weidman, like such a significant injury, what impact this is going to have on his career. Not only the road ahead from a physical standpoint, but Phil, for a fighter to have an injury like that, it's like mentally, it's, to me, that's an enormous hurdle to be able to overcome. You're going to have that image every time you throw a kick. And that, to me, is, God, it's a devastating injury on numerous fronts.
I mean, even if you recall when Anderson returned from his first from that injury, he was very cautious in the comeback fight that was against Nick Diaz, I believe. And then he also tested positive for steroids in that fight, which is something that had never happened in his career before. So, something about the mentality and, confidence required to go in there. There may be something to be said about it.
So we wish as speedy a recovery as possible for Chris Weidman, but that's going to be, a long road ahead for him. And then the pay-per-view opened up with another bizarre end. This was between Anthony Smith and Jimmy Crute. And Smith was just showcasing his jab, which was working tremendously well for him. And he lands a kick to the knee of Crute, and he collapses, but then just gets a takedown on Smith. And you can see he cannot put any weight onto this leg, but he gets a second takedown. And it just seemed like that was his only strategy. And then he's got to go to the corner, and this guy cannot even walk properly. Like, I couldn't believe that this was not immediately waved off. There was like this gap where it was like, are we even debating? Like, this guy cannot even put weight on this. It was nuts, but the fight was waved off after the first round. And Crute just said, well, I was just going to pull guard in the second round because I couldn't stand on the injured leg. Dude, this dude was the perfect example of fighters that, listen, as tough as you could possibly imagine, but need safeguards in place to save them from themselves, because this dude was going to fight 2 more rounds. No problem. One leg, I'm good. It was like he was ready to go. And it was, you could not even, like, just, this looked brutal as his leg is just flopping all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, if they had let it go on, he still might have been able to get a takedown. I mean, the way he was determined on the bull rush. I couldn't believe he got
like the 2 of them.
Yeah, that's right. It was 2 takedowns. And at first, so about the fight proceeding. So at first, when it looked like he was getting some feeling back in the leg and he was maybe recovering a little bit. And then the doctor was asking him to, like, do some little maneuvers. And I had actually missed that he rolled on the leg at the end of it. And so I was like, why'd they stop the fight? But then when I saw that, it's like, yeah, obviously, if he can't follow the doctor's instructions, the fight should not continue. But I thought it was okay to give him a chance to at least end the break in between rounds. Can you continue, follow these steps? No? Okay, then it's over. But yeah, he would have gone on, and yeah, you need rules to stop people like himself or Dominic Cruz who'll just go to the death.
And that was also noted at the end of the broadcast, with Megan O'Leary doing this update, that Jimmy Crute, I guess he's going for tests on sometime after the fight. I guess they don't know exactly right now what the state of this was, because they were theorizing on the broadcast, like, was this like a nerve issue? I mean, it could have been like, you're watching it and your immediate thought is like, the guy's torn his ACL or something, but it could have been a nerve issue as well. So hopefully we'll get some clarity on the state of his injury, and hopefully it's not too bad, because visually, I mean, it just looked like his knee was destroyed.
Yeah, it looked really bad. But historically, these sort of things, these tend to be like sort of temporary. I mean, that was the case with Michael Chandler.
That was the one, with Brett Primus. Yeah. Yeah.
And then even, when this happened to Cejudo, he was able to recover in his fight with DJ in that case. And there was another instance of this. I mean, Conor McGregor, right? The same thing kind of happened to him. And he's booked for a fight soon. So hopefully it isn't a bad injury. And he can get back in there. And Anthony Smith, spring chicken, 32 years old, 50 fights deep, but, still got some tools in the toolbox and some learning to do.
So there was also this incident in between the main card and the prelims, because Jake Paul showed up, Phil, and the chants of "fuck Jake Paul" were throughout the broadcast. You could this audience was just on Jake Paul for the whole time. I thought, from Jake Paul's perspective, it was brilliant to show up at this show. He felt like he was the biggest star there. And they actually did show him on the broadcast, on the pay-per-view portion, which I was surprised by. I thought they were not going to give him any screen time on this. But the incident that occurred was that after the prelims ended, Daniel Cormier went up to him, and video did circulate, and they kind of just exchanged words. And then Cormier went back to the booth and did his pay-per-view opening with Anik and Rogan. But this, Jake Paul was, I mean, his presence was felt throughout most of the show, from the time he showed up through the Oliveira Randy Brown fight throughout the pay-per-view. I mean, Cormier also brought it on air. I don't know if I guess you missed that as well. Then there was a point when, they said, he addresses Jake directly on the air and says, don't mess around with me. I will go over there and slap you. That was during the Oliveira Brown fight, right?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think that was when it was. Yeah, but it was it was on the broadcast, so it wasn't just something that somebody captured on social media.
So just looking at the prelims here. So Randy Brown defeated Alex Oliveira. This is crazy. This did not get Randy Brown a performance of the night bonus, but he won with a one-armed rear naked choke. I mean, this was masterful, and this was after he dropped him with this beautiful right hand. But this was a spectacular submission with one arm, Phil.
John, my jiu-jitsu claim to fame, my only competition submission victory is a one-arm rear naked choke.
Oh, get out of here.
Well,
then it's not that impressive if Randy Brown pulled it off. I mean, you are the originator then.
His is actually more impressive, and I'll tell you why. Because the way I finished it is I would come and I'd actually get the hand behind my neck, and then you turn in and that squeezes. He didn't even have that. He just used all his arm strength, and a lot of torque on the body. Very impressive, incredible submission. I mean, against a very game opponent. Yeah.
So tell me, when you're going for this, what is the job of your other arm that are you just trying to like kind of harness your opponent's arm and then just use strength with like the left arm, for instance?
Well, so typically, you go for a rear naked choke and you use both arms, right? You'll cross and then you squeeze them together. A lot of people will defend this arm. They'll put like two hands on one on that. So it prevents you. Really, you want to address this arm first, right? Most people, that's good enough, but it is this arm that you want to address. So while they're 2-on-1 on that arm, I just sneak behind my neck like this and turn. And not everybody can do it. It's sort of like, it just has to work.
Did you do
for
it in
your
the
body.
gi?
This was a no-gi match.
It was a no-gi. I'm very impressed. Like, I would think, like, the gi, like, you get the arm around, and it's like you've got something to actually hold on to. Whereas, in this case, like, he didn't even have that. I mean, and to pull it off at, like, this level, I was in awe of this. This was an incredible submission.
Yes. The level of competition should be duly noted when comparing.
No, Phil, don't ever downgrade. I'm very impressed you pulled this off. And then the rest of the prelims here. Dwight Grant defeated Stefan Sekulić by split decision. I had scored this fight for Sekulić with I had scored round 1 for him, round 2 for Grant. The third round, I think I was in the minority here. I thought it was enough for a 10-8 based on that. He dropped him at the end, and he had this guy deep with a guillotine. And it looked like this fight was over when he was saved by the horn.
It was very deep. It was really impressive for him to go after it so hard at the end on a fight that I had him actually winning all 3 rounds. It was really tough. Amazing job to dig it out like that. Almost had the finish. I didn't have it as a 10-8, but I can't complain about that.
Brendan Allen defeated Karl Roberson. This came first of all. Which back tattoo would you go with, Phil? Would you go with Roberson's blessed or Allen's Allen on the back?
Oh, Allen's Allen. The Discord knows me very well. I wouldn't just get Allen. I would get Allen's Allen as my whole tattoo.
Would you ever get Chertok in block letters across your back?
Only in that graphic font from the like Affliction era.
Yeah, with like a snake climbing through a skull for the H maybe. So anyway, what happens here? Allen's in half guard, and Roberson goes to scramble, and he's going for the leg for like a heel hook. But in moving, Allen gets his own heel hook and submits Roberson with 5 seconds to go in the first round. So a heel hook submission, which, I mean, I'm sorry, Brendan, but take a number. Not the most impressive finish of the night.
Horrible move by Roberson here. Like one of the
like if he didn't scramble, he was gonna ride out the round. I mean, he wasn't winning the round, but he opened himself up with seconds to go, and it was just so fun. Like he looked to have in mind a heel hook, and then he gets caught with one.
Well, I mean, that's the thing with leg locks. You set yourself up to be a victim of a leg lock, and you're going up against a guy who's better on the ground than you. So you use it to create a scramble, and then you go. But you don't chase it, and he chased it. And at one point, I actually don't think that, I know the officially called it, and even Rogan said it. I don't think it was actually a heel hook, because he's got the heel, he's turning into it, and then at some point he goes over top of the ankle and then pulls back. So I think it's a straight ankle lock.
Be an ankle lock?
That's what I think. So I do hope that there's somebody out there, another jiu-jitsu mind, who can correct me if I'm wrong. But I do think it's an ankle lock, even though the record reads otherwise.
And then the opener on television was Pat Sabatini defeating Canadian Tristan Connolly by unanimous decision, 30-29, 28, 29-28. I scored it 29-27 for Sabatini. I went first 2 rounds for Sabatini. The second round was a pretty dominant one for him. But I thought Connolly did enough to squeak by in the third round. So I did give him the third round. Sabatini gets the unanimous decision. And this was his UFC debut. And I thought a good outing for him.
Yeah, good outing against a much larger opponent. I scored it the same way, except I did give round 2 10-8 to Sabatini in that one. So slight discrepancy between the two of us.
And did you watch any of the early prelims? I did not.
Oh, I did watch them. I mean, the card started off with a bang. I mean, right away. Like, I would recommend people go back and watch these. I think there was one fight on here that wasn't that great. Was it? No. These were all pretty good. I think people can go back and watch these happily. Yeah.
Dana Batgaril defeated Kevin Notvedad by TKO at 50 seconds of the first round. Then we had Kazula Vargas over Rong Zhu by unanimous decision. Jeff Molina over, I hope I'm getting this right, Oichi Weng by unanimous decision. And this got fight of the night.
Yeah, man. Like the fighters came out hot. The crowd came out hot. Everybody delivered tonight. Even the gods with some cruelty, bizarreness. But the action started heavy right away.
The very first fight was Ariane Carnelossi over Na Liang by TKO 128 of round 2. So we got that was the Jeff Molina fight was fight of the night, and then your performance of the night bonuses shockingly went to Kamaru Usman and Rose Namajunas and poor Randy Brown.
Yeah.
Even Shevchenko as well. I mean, there were some unbelievable performances here. This was, I mean, I feel bad saying this was like a great card when that Weidman injury was just so horrific to watch. But this really was a spectacular show.
I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, it's kind of this thing that you can't forget about when it comes to this event, but it's also another part of it that makes it incredibly memorable. And as we said at the top of the show, I think we both think that this will be one of the most remembered cards in history.
Okay, all right. But the greatest stat of all, coming from Andreas Hale, the main card of UFC 261 is the shortest in UFC history, with 19 minutes and 56 seconds of cage time. The second shortest, UFC 92, which was December 2008. It was Frank Mir, Rodrigo Nogueira. It was Rashad Evans, Forrest Griffin was on that card, and Quinton Jackson, Vanderlei Silva. Those were like the 3 main fights on that UFC 92 card.
Wow, 13 years later, we finally get some reprieve from the late nights.
And it destroyed it by like 11 minutes.
I mean, another record that will be tough to beat, unfortunately. But let's do it, UFC fighters. I believe in you. I know you can. Let's try.
All right. Do we want to take some phone calls?
Yeah, for sure. All right. As we often do, we're going to start off. So we actually have more people than I can recall. So hopefully we can get to everybody. But I usually start with John Fury 316. John Fury, if you want to Tell us, give us what's the bottom line on UFC 261.
It was a good pay-per-view. Not gonna lie, I'm disappointed because I really thought Jorge Masvidal was gonna win. I was cheering for him. I like him, but much respect to Kamaru Usman. I thought Rose. I think she's probably like third best woman on the roster after Valentina Shevchenko, who just totally dominant. I think that was a statement. Like, I'm ready for Nunes rematch. But I want to talk about Kamaru Usman. Do you think he needs to change divisions at this point? Because after he beats, if he fights Kobe and then Leon, there's really nothing left for him but rematches or matches that I don't think will even headline UFC pay-per-views. Do you think he will? Do you think he needs to change divisions just to give himself maybe a challenge and to make more money? Because I fear he'll fall into that Demetrius Johnson situation where we don't even talk about him sometimes as one of the greatest because he really just fought the next guy up and the next guy up wasn't really good. I just want what you guys think.
All right. Thank you for the question, John. And John, what do you think about that?
I hate the idea that we have a dominant champion and they have to like handicap themselves by going to another weight class. Like, he is the top welterweight in the world. And I would push back on look at the guys that he has fought so far. Like Covington, Burns, he has a win over Leon Edwards. He has 2 over Masvidal. I mean, he's beating like world-class opponents. I do believe like this is a division that it is going to replenish itself. You will have new contenders, but I look at Usman as well. Like, he, to me, I could see him going up to middleweight at some point in his career, but I would only do that if it was, something where it was advantageous for him. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily, moving up to middleweight when you're such a dominant champion. Like, it was the same with like George, where it was like he was so dominant at welterweight. Well, let's move up to a division that is going to be, it's almost like you have to handicap him when you're watching this guy excel in this weight class. He is like the best welterweight. So I'm not crazy about him leaving the division, but I don't rule it out either.
Yeah, I'm largely with you. I'm not crazy about fighters moving up. I like dominant champions defending their belt. And I do think by the time, if he's able to defend against Covington again and Leon Edwards finally gets that fight, I think other people will emerge. I mean, Wonder Boy is an option out there. That's a really interesting one, actually. I'd
like to see that fight. I hope that one does materialize. I think that's an interesting one. Another aspect is that in this era on ESPN Plus, the pay-per-view numbers are not coming out the way they were in the prior era. So you don't even have like, if a guy is like a average selling, champion, we're probably not going to be privy to those numbers unless Disney or UFC releases them. And we've seen, like, so far 2 years into this ESPN deal, like the numbers that come out are the gigantic ones and others are less so. So I don't think you're like a card that's going to do, say, and to be honest, like Usman, like they did tremendous back in July, which, I mean, it had 3 championship fights. But this one, like, I think you have to give Usman and Masvidal a lot of the credit on this one, along with just the nature of it being the first card back with fans. I think those were your biggest kind of drawing components, but I sense this show doing very good business.
It definitely seems like that. The activity on Discord and just generally social media, people were really excited about it. I mean, Masvidal is an established star, a huge star in this sport. He already fought Usman last year, so Usman got the rub there. Usman had a spectacular finish since then, so he's building himself up. You can't really say he's a boring fighter anymore. I mean, after finishes,
not at all,
back-to-back finishes like that, I mean, even if that was a criticism, which isn't usually something that I go to, but if it's out there, how can you say that now? All right. How about we take a call from Down Under. Dickie, you're on the line. How are you doing? What'd you think of UFC 261?
G'day, guys. How's it going?
We're doing pretty good. What'd you think about the fights?
Well, before I talk about the fights, I just want to give a bit of a shout out because I saw some new swanky graphics on this show, some 3D transitions that shout out to Phil Chertok, stepping it up a little bit. Very nice. John, you probably didn't see them, but go back and watch them. Very nice stuff.
All right.
Thank you.
So I promised Phil that I would call into the show because we had a lot of brouhaha about Jimmy Crute and Anthony Smith. And I said Jimmy Crute wasn't going to win, and Anthony Smith, it was too early for him, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, the end result wasn't quite, a definitive ending, right? So I kept my promise. I'm here calling in, but obviously it's not because Anthony Smith destroyed him or anything. But the question that I actually have is, from what you saw, and it was a very small amount, what did you think about Jimmy Crute, who is ranked number 15 against a ranked number 7 guy? Was he out of his element? Did you see that he potentially, without the nerve damage, sprained ankle, whatever it was he doing well, or was this Anthony Smith's fight?
Thank you very much for the great question, Dickie.
Yes, thank you for the call. I mean, I thought that it was, it was to me like the jabs were piling up before the shot to the knee. But I mean, it's not uncommon that you can have a bad first round and things change dramatically in the second round. I think Jimmy Crute, he's a quality fighter, and I think this is one where I don't discount this victory though for Anthony Smith. I mean, he did the same. He did that damage to him. I mean, it was like with Tyron Woodley and Carlos Condit. It's like you can say whatever you want, but it was like that damage was inflicted by Tyron Woodley and deserves the credit for that win. But I don't think you write off Jimmy Crute by any stretch. In fact, I think a lot of people were probably impressed with his toughness, and we'll see what he gets next.
I mean, hey, maybe he should start chasing some takedowns because it seems like he can get them.
Well, there you go. He did have his wrestling game with one leg on. That was very impressive.
All right. So thank you very much, Dickie. We now go to our man, Neil Flanagan. Neil, how are you doing?
Oh, geez, guys, I didn't really know I was going to be called on. I was just watching the show in the Discord. But
okay. Well,
John will know that I'm not a connoisseur of MMA in general or UFC specifically, but
here you are at 6:30 in the morning calling into our show. A true follower and supporter, Neil.
Indeed, as always, it always will be, John, for life, as they say. But it was no, it was really the Discord that kept me going tonight because I was in great company with the likes of Dickie, Brandon from New Jersey, Eric, Phil, everyone, and I'm going to miss out people. But
what a party!
Yeah, it really is. Mike Hogan, sorry, yes, Mike, and they helped to sort of keep me a little bit educated on what's going on, and I'm getting more interested in the sport. Just from reading your columns, John, and from these podcasts and from the primers that you do and all of that. So it was a terrifically entertaining night, even if I'm not the best person to comment on the finesse of it all. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyable, and I was glad that it rattled along at a pretty nice pace, even if it was at the expense of some absolutely heinous scenes. So I'll just say that and let you get on with some people who know what they're talking about.
Well, thanks very much, Neil. We appreciate you calling in and participating on the Discord. What was the scene like tonight, Phil? It was busy.
It was extremely busy. I mean, there was just as many people in the voice chat as we've ever had. The actual MMA text channel was bumping. We had more votes, I think, than ever before. In fact, I forgot to check the leaderboard to see Scott and Eric atop of all of us. Yeah, it was a great time. I recommend everybody go to the Discord, postwrestling.com/Discord. We've got two more callers. Spot for two more callers right now. Nick Govey 21. How are you doing? What'd you think of the show? Nick Govey, you just listening? All right. Okay. Going once, going twice. Gone, Nick Govey. Okay. And that brings us to the final caller of the day. The one, the only. We couldn't do this without a trip to New Jersey. Brandon, how are you?
Oh dear.
Brandon?
Oh my God. What's going on?
Is he sleeping? Have we caught Brandon sleeping?
Oh.
I
Okay,
think
we're moving on.
Yes. What a moment. A classic moment in the history of the post show. Thank you, Brandon.
Yes. Wonderful contribution to the show. All right. Before we wind things down.
Yes.
Can we move on? This is like driving me nuts here.
I thought we did.
I'm still getting him in my ear.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to server mute him. Sorry. My bad. I muted him on my end. Sorry about that, John. Sorry about that, crowd.
All right. Well, on that note, everybody, what a way to end the show. Those were Brandon's contributions. But Phil, we're going to be back in a couple of weeks. We've got UFC 262 in 3 weeks' time going to Houston.
For another packed crowd.
Yes, another sold-out crowd. We have Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, Leon Edwards, Nate Diaz. What else? Tony Ferguson, Beneil Dariush is on this card. Jacare is fighting. Lando Venata's on the card. Antonina Shevchenko. So can she outdo the performance of her sister of 3 weeks earlier? But this is Shane Burgos against Edson Barbosa.
Yeah,
very good fights on this
that's a really good fight. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the UFC, they're coming back strong for these live events, these big pay-per-views, and Houston is no exception.
All right. Any fights coming up in the next couple of weeks that really have your interest? Do you have Dominic Reyes, Yuri Prohaska next weekend, and then the return of TJ Dillashaw in 2 weeks against Corey Sandhagen?
Yeah, that's a huge fight. I think that's the one that a lot of people are interested in, seeing where TJ Dillashaw is at. I was kind of surprised he wasn't booked even earlier because he was eligible earlier in the year. Right. But I think, maybe we're waiting for certain things to play out. Sandhagen's called him out. And I think it's going to be a really exciting fight.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you to everybody that joined Phil and everybody in the Discord chat all night long. It is popping, not just on UFC nights, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Phil has created a whole city of post wrestling that's out there. These images are just striking.
I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to have created an entire city, but yeah, we have a little virtual world, this virtual Grand Theft Auto world, where if you join the Discord, you can get access to, and you can run around Post Santos and wreak havoc. And we just have a lot of fun in the Discord. It's a great place to hang out during live events. And just chill with good people, talk about fights, share some wacky gifts, and have a great time.
You can all join the Discord. Just go to postwrestling.com/Discord. Is that the easiest place to go?
That is the easiest place to go. But we should probably mention one more thing, John, because we're actually going to be back before the next UFC pay-per-view.
Yes. A week from Tuesday, the next edition of Rewind Away. This is going to be an MMA-centric Rewind Away, meaning Wei Ting is going to be taking the show off. So on Tuesday, May the 4th, It's going to be myself, along with Phil Chertok and Eric Marcotte, as we are going to be reviewing Affliction Banned from July 2008, starring Fedor Emelianenko as he takes on former UFC heavyweight champion Tim Sylvia. But the real main event, Megadeth on pay-per-view.
Oh, man, yes. An entire symphony of destruction is awaiting us for the post patrons. So if you haven't been to the Post Wrestling Cafe and signed up and subscribed, then you need to do that, because that's the only way you're going to get access to this incredible review. Also, 11 years ago? Is that what you said? Or longer? My math's messed up. 13?
2008. 13 almost.
Yeah. So that's the same amount of time since that other quickest UFC card, right? That was in 2008 as well, you said?
That's right. That was in 2008. Several months
weird
apart.
Kismet. It's like it's like how Weidman gave it to Silva, and then he took it from Hall. Here we are on these weird bookends for this Affliction card.
Well, and as the callers proved, the event Affliction Banned, literally a sleeper pick.
Yeah.
So you can check all of that out Tuesday, May the 4th with Eric, Phil, and myself. That will be dropping for Post Wrestling Cafe members. You can join at postwrestlingcafe.com. And we will be back. Wayne and I will be back on Monday night. We'll also have coverage Sunday night of Impact's Rebellion pay-per-view with Davey Portman and John Cena having a review of that card. And that's going to wrap it up. So go check out the Discord. Go follow Phil. He's just dominating all of the post wrestling online chatter. So that is your homework, everybody. Join the Discord if you're not already living and thriving in the virtual world, as you can virtually hang out with Phil.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you to all the people, and we shall see you soon.
Good night.
Peace.